It's 9 a.m. on Monday, and you grab your laptop and head into the conference room right on time. You figure you'll wrap up the new quarter's promo plan quickly today, but as soon as your boss starts talking, they loop back to last week's customer complaint. They go on about how that order mistake happened because the process wasn't tight enough, and how you all keep making excuses about external factors. 20 minutes later, the conversation's still stuck in the same spot. Your pen stops moving without you noticing. Your eyes drift to the coffee cart outside the window, and when your boss suddenly asks, "What do you think of this improvement idea?" you don't even react. Right now, the over-limit effect is quietly shifting your attitude. This, the more you emphasize it, the more annoyed you get. Phenomenon was already proven by American author Mark Twain's experience back in the 19th century. He once went to a church to hear a pastor speak. At first, he was struck by the help poor children theme and made up his mind to donate all the cash he had on him. But 10 minutes later, the pastor was still repeating details of the story. Twain started to get annoyed and decided to only give loose change. Another 10 minutes passed, and the speech still wasn't over. He got so mad he changed his mind again. He wasn't going to donate a cent. By the time the pastor finally finished, Twain even took a few coins out of the donation box. Later, psychologists named this phenomenon the over-limit effect, when stimulation is too intense, too strong, or lasts too long, causing a person to shift from acceptance to resistance. Its essence is the brain's self-protection mechanism. When external stimulation exceeds the threshold of cognitive processing, the nervous system automatically switches to a resistance mode. It's like how a phone lags when its storage is full. Your brain also needs to avoid being clogged up with meaningless information. At work, you've probably run into similar over-limit dilemmas too. For example, when your software company was pushing the development of a new app, the weekly progress meetings were super efficient at first. Your boss would come with data to point out issues, the team would discuss solutions, and you'd leave each time with clear tasks. But starting from the third week, the meetings suddenly jumped to 3 times a week. Every time, they'd start from the very beginning, talking about the project launch background again, and keep harping on how user experience is key, but never mention new test data or what competitors were up to. You notice your focus slipping. In the first meeting, you were still underlining key points in your notebook. By the second, you couldn't help replying to messages on your phone. And by the third, when your boss said again, "We have to take user feedback seriously," you even subconsciously rolled your eyes. Behind this is the cognitive load theory. At work, people have limited working memory capacity. It's like how a computer slows down if you have too many programs open at once. When information repeats over and over with no new content, your brain feels resources are being wasted and starts to get frustrated. It's the same as eating the same salad 3 days in a row. Even if you thought it was healthy at first, you'll end up resisting it because of taste fatigue. In marketing, the over-limit effect is even more likely to turn you from a potential customer into someone who blocks the brand. Last year, you signed up for email updates from an organic skincare brand. At first, their emails were thoughtful. One a week, recommending serums from the same line as the moisturizer you'd bought, plus tips for facial massages. You didn't just open them, you even repurchased twice. But at the start of this year, the brand suddenly changed its strategy. They started sending 3 emails a day, with subject lines ranging from limited time 20% off to only 3 hours left to "you'll regret it if you don't buy." But the content was just promotions for the same few products. They didn't even change the images. You ignored the first one, marked the second as spam, and unsubscribed entirely after the third. This is actually a failed reverse of the exposure effect. In psychology, the exposure effect says moderate repetition boosts liking, but that only works if each exposure adds new value. Once it becomes mindless spamming, it triggers the over-limit effect. It's like walking past a bakery. If you catch a whiff of the scent occasionally, you might want to buy something. But if the staff chases you every day to sell the same loaf of bread, you'll end up walking around the block to avoid them. In education and training, the over-limit effect can even make you give up a study plan you were originally interested in. Last year, you signed up for an online illustration class. At first, you were drawn to the teacher's style. They'd break down complex compositions into small steps, assign practice exercises after each lesson, and only send one voice note with a summary afterward. You could stick to studying for an hour every day and made obvious progress. But halfway through the course, the teachers started running over time constantly. A 1-hour class often dragged on to an hour and a half. They also kept repeating basic concepts. When talking about color matching, they'd say, you need to balance warm and cool tones, over and over, but never expand on real-world uses. After class, they'd send 3 5-minute voice notes, and the content was almost the same as what they'd covered in class. You started making excuses to put it off. I'm too tired from overtime today, or my friends asked me out for dinner tomorrow. By the time the course ended, you still hadn't gone through a third of the content. This ties to the misuse of the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. The forgetting curve emphasizes timely review, like revisiting material 1 day, 3 days, and 7 days after learning it, focusing on weak areas. But repeating the same content too much makes your brain think, I've fully mastered this, so it stops deep processing and even leads to study fatigue. It's like trying to memorize vocabulary by writing the same word 100 times a day. You end up not remembering it at all, and even develop a fear of memorizing words. In reality, the overlimit effect is never far from our lives. It's in the meetings where your boss repeats themselves, in the spammy brand emails, and in the overly long classes. But it's not unavoidable. The key is to grasp the stimulation threshold. At work, managers can cut down on meaningless repetition and focus on new issues in each conversation. In marketing, brands can send personalized info based on user needs instead of mindless spamming. In education, teachers can control the pace and make reviews more targeted. After all, whether it's communication or influencing others, moderation is always more powerful than excess. For example, if Mark Twain had met a concise, impactful pastor, he might have donated even more. And if you encountered efficient meetings, thoughtful marketing, and streamlined courses, you'd be more willing to put in the effort. That's the core lesson the overlimit effect teaches us. Truly effective influence has never been about the more the better. It's about just right.